Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. Let's give the rest of the class a few more minutes to slowly come in. Alrighty, hi everyone. So while we wait for the rest of the class to come in, let's start with an icebreaker. Okay, what's everyone's favorite flavor of ice cream? And feel free to either put it in the chat or to just go ahead and say it. And what's everyone's least favorite flavor of ice cream as well? Mint and strawberry. That's good. Okay, fish food, mint chocolate chip, banana. Ooh. You don't like chocolate. Okay. Yeah, chocolate can be a lot. I feel like sometimes chocolate ice cream, it's a little intense. Least favorite mint chocolate chip. Have you seen the memes where they say mint chocolate chip tastes like you're brushing your teeth? Least favorite peanut butter. Ooh, I've never had peanut butter ice cream. Honey lavender, that sounds really good. Yeah, strawberry is definitely goated. Least favorite really anything with nuts in it. Nuts and ice cream is like definitely top tier in my opinion. Okay. Okay, well, why Rocky Road? Yep. While we wait for Dr. Fisher to come in, I wanted to just introduce. Oh, hi, Dr. Fisher. I'll let her connect to audio. Give her a minute. Milk and cookies. That's a good one. It's a texture thing. Yeah, I understand. Okay, Dr. Fisher, we were just talking about our favorite flavor of ice cream as we waited. But I think we're ready to go ahead and begin if everyone's here. Do you want me to introduce Professor Moore or would you like to?
I'll have you do it, but can we wait just a few? Well, actually, we can.
Yeah, we can wait a few more minutes. I think there's still slowly some people still coming in, so we can wait a few more minutes.
Just maybe one or some. I just want to, I see people still coming in. And welcome, Professor Moore. Um, and I'm still trying to get connected. So I can connect my camera. Okay, hi everyone. I see your questions about the film, and I will answer that towards the end of our time. There should be, it may not be visible in Canvas, but there's a there there's a place for your input or reflections. So we can continue to talk about that. And remember, we also have class on Thursday. Okay. So welcome, Professor Moore. those that just those that can come off camera, do if you can, so we can welcome Professor Moore. I also understand, and Leroy Moore, who I promise I introduce as community scholar. I'm so excited he's here today. I want to make sure that, Camille, I'm grateful if you could read the introduction. And I just want to say one more thing in that, just to let Leroy Moore know that we don't all have like stable internet connections. So sometimes a lot of our students will stay off, have the option to be off camera to preserve the connection. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And
Hi, Professor Moore. It's an honor to meet you. For those of you who don't know who Leroy Moore, sorry, get tongue-tied. He's the founder of Krip-Hop Nation, linguistic anthropologist, Emmy Award-winning, creator of National Black Disability Coalition, activist, poet, icon, recent MA graduate, just amazing person to have. So we have him here today to talk about some of his work. Who recently you've recently got your master's degree, and you wrote the book Black Disabled Ancestors in 2020. So if you want to just tell us a little bit about your work, a little bit about your history, who you are, we would greatly appreciate it.
Great, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here. I'm Leroy Moore. I'm a Black man wearing a hoodie in my kitchen. In the background, you see Krip-Hop paintings. So that's my image description. A little bit about me. I was born in the coldest place on earth, not the North Pole. It's Buffalo, New York. I got the hell out of there as quick as I could. And I grew up in Connecticut and also New York City when hip hop was on the corner. So I saw hip hop on the corner. And those were the days. I moved to the Bay Area back in '91. I was in the Bay Area since UCLA came and got me. I wasn't thinking about graduate school. I was just doing my Krip-Hop work. I also helped to create Sins and Valley. And before that, I had a nonprofit for people of color with disabilities because I came after my undergrad. My sister said, "Leroy, you take some time off because you're always working, you're always going to school." So I took some time off and I went to the UK because the UK had a Black disabled movement. So I wanted to see that from my own eyes. I got there a little bit too late, unfortunately. But I did meet some founders from that movement. And the reason why that movement didn't last because of lack of resources and a lack of support from both communities. And I found that issue out in Toronto. And I was in Toronto, I was there a little bit too late. And they had a Black disabled movement because of lack of support and a lack of financial support, grants and stuff, they had to fold. So I came back home and quit my nonprofit job. I was working at a CIL. I did a little experiment at the time. I had two of my friends dressed to the T, both of them male, one white, one Black, to go into this agency and get resources. So my white friend was in there for 2 hours. Came back with resources, came back with an offer for a job. and my black friend went in there. He was in there for 10 minutes, came back with nothing. I was like, wow. I was like, okay, I can't go back working to these agencies. I just can't. And that's when I started on Disability Advocates of Minorities Organization back in San Francisco. This is back in 96, 97. And we did that for 4 or 5 years. I got sick of writing grants. My job turned into a grant writer. I was like, oh, I didn't start this for this. So I quit that, and at that time, I met Patty Byrne. Patty Byrne is a disability justice, one of the key founders of disability justice. And me and Patty Byrne was looking at the arts arena in the Bay Area and didn't see any Black or brown disabled artists in the art arena. So that's why we came up with Sins Invalid, and Sins Invalid is a performance group and also creator of disability justice. At that time, Mia Mingus was around, and the late Stacey Milburn was around. And it's interesting how the history gets kind of whacked, because online you see that it was Stacey Milburn, Mia Mingus, and Patty Byrne. I was like, I was there. So I don't know what, didn't go online, it's kind of weird. But anyway, we all sat down and discussed this disability justice kind of new movement. And we really wanted to get it into people of color communities, queer, straight communities. And I realized going through this process, I realized that that a lot of people of color, especially activists, people of color with disabilities, have open wounds when it comes to people of color organizing and advocacy kind of work. So because of those open wounds, I think, could be wrong, but I think because of those open wounds, disability justice didn't really get deep into people of color communities, especially the Black and brown communities. And that's why like I said, I think that disability justice got our foot deep into the disability community, which is great and all. But I think the work of in our Black and brown communities is still not there, unfortunately. And now I see disability justice is like everywhere except the Black and brown communities. And that's one reason, and other reasons why I love Sims. Another reason I love Sims about it, because I wanted to put my full work into Krip-Hop Nation, which I started under Sims, not with Sims, but under Sims. But I wanted to really put my work in Krip-Hop. And Krip-Hop Nation is an international hip hop artist, poet, activist movement that's been around since, I think it's 2006, 2005. And we had chapters internationally. And so because of that work, UCLA came knocking on my door and said, Leroy, you've been doing this Krip-Hop work for 17 years. You should come here and get a PhD And during that process, during getting here, me and Stephanie Parks did a chapter, and now he's my advisor, Sammy Aline, on the chapter in this hip-hop textbook that came out called Freedom Moves. And it was the first hip-hop textbook that had a disability chapter in it, which is good and also disgusting at the same time, because it's like, why did it take so long to get in there? So because of that, I said, okay. At the time, I was dealing with a spiritual landlord. I sued him 3 times, won. But anyway, dealing with that, I said, okay, the writing is on the wall. Let me go to UCLA. So I've been here for 3 years in LA. And to tell you the truth, I don't like LA. I like the program, and I just, yeah, I miss the Bay. I'm an activist in LA. From my experience, it's not an activist kind of place. I know you have places like Inglewood, but overall, it doesn't measure up to the Bay Area and the history of the Black Panthers and, you know, disability activism and disability justice. And so yeah, so I'm here in my 3rd year. Like you said, I just finished my master's thesis, bringing the Krip-Hop work into the Black community. Just got finished with that. And my future work is so exciting. I can't wait to talk about it. It's like Kripping the Black radical tradition. And that's always going to be fascinating. So I'm doing a deep dive in the Black radical tradition and, you know, how to crip it for Black disabled people. Because I think what happened to why disability justice is everywhere except the Black community, which I think it's so funny, is that I think sense of valid, and it's not you know, talking bad about them. It's just the reality is that we lean heavy on disability thought and philosophies like the social model, the medical model of disability, but we didn't reach out to Black theories and Black philosophies and Black radical histories and say, okay, how can we crit this? So because of that, I think that's why the Black community is not really hasn't been really open to disability justice because it's so deeply into the white disabled theory. So hopefully my work around cripping the Black radical tradition and looking at other Black theories and histories and looking at Black disabled ancestors. You know, I put together this trivia list. It's like about 20 Black disabled trivia questions. And a lot of them, you know, talk about history that only I knew only a couple of years ago. Because it goes beyond Brad Lomax, it goes beyond, you know, the 504 sit-ins and looking at, you know, Black disabled people. I did some amazing stuff like for example, this one cat, his name, like he took the KKK to court. I was black when he was disabled, and this black, I call him radical. He was radical. You know, was targeted by the KKK, and because of that, he took them to court and won. But he realized, like, okay, these people are not gonna protect my people, so he led black people to this country in Africa. I mean, those are kind of histories, those are kind of resistance that we should, you know, write about and bring into disability justice so we can blacken disability justice for the black community. So I know I talked a lot, so. Oh, I can't hear you.
Thank you. Wow, Leroy, you just dropped knowledge. Like there's so much there. I want to like get us all in conversation. I'm burning with questions myself. I'll let me know if it's too distracting. I'm putting stuff in the chat, but like I'll share that with you later. It's just, yeah. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, what the work that you're doing is a significant contribution to anthropology and the history of theory, as well as disability studies, Black studies, and more, applied anthropology and so forth. I was going to ask you why anthropology, which you shared, and I'll pause, but I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, I want to say because it wasn't my choice. Matter of fact, I with Poor Magazine has a history of protesting UC Berkeley around their anthropology department because they still had Native American bones in their freaking anthropology department. So it's so interesting that you asked that, because one of my professors said that was on my committee for my master's thesis. I really trust her, so I was sending my poetry to her since I got here, and that's how I'm surviving this PhD thing. I write poetry. That's how I survive it. So I wrote this poem on the first year, and it's called "Fuck Durkheim," because we had to read Durkheim like every class. This racist, classist, sexist, ableist man, we kept on having to read him. So I just wrote a poem called "Fuck Durkheim." You know, and my first class was online. This is back when, you know, COVID was still killing people. It still is, but you know, in the first 2 years or so. So we were online, and this is my first class, right? And they're going over terms and anthropology. I was like, hold it. Field work. It's kind of triggering for Black people, the field work. So you know, so that was my first semester. But yeah, I didn't choose anthropology. They chose me. So it's funny because when I moved here, in my hand was Neil Hurston's book, and also this book by John Langston. Yes, I mean these are the books that I was like holding tightly on, you know, because these were Black anthropologists. One was a Black blind man. So every time I went into the class, my first 2 years, I had these books, and the professor's like, oh, we can't do that book because it's too new. I was like, are you serious? You know, I was like, are you serious? So yeah, so anthropology has a lot of work to do, and I know there's been a lot of Black anthropologists like Don here that's been pushing the field to be more, if you can say, diverse, but not even diverse, to change their whole curriculum, and you know, so hopefully I can do that in, you know, when it comes to disability and Black disability and hip hop, you know, because Sammy Aline, my advisor, brings hip hop to the class. And it's interesting because me being a TA now, I'm a TA in his class. This is the second time being a TA in his class. I bring in Krip-Hop to the class. So that the student's mind is like blown away because first they're getting hip hop by Sammy Aline in an anthro class, dealing with language, and here I am being Krip-Hop, you know. So it's really interesting how we can play around in these white areas. And I tell my students all the time, I tell my students, you bring in knowledge, you have knowledge. You know, so bring that knowledge to the class. I tell students to use YouTube all the time, you know. And my professor said, Leroy, you give these students too much. I was like, no, I don't. It's just another way of really tackling the issue and bringing their whole self to this racist, classist, sexist anthropology, you know, so yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of knowledge that was just dropped here. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm gonna defer to Camille. So, and then I'll go back and ask some more questions. I also wanted to clarify because you brought up I wanted to emphasize, you brought up a name, John Gwaltney, who I don't think is in this text that I'm teaching from, but it's like so important and iconic in any history of theory. I'm often amazed by how he's invisibilized.
Yes.
When I was in undergrad in anthropology at Washington University in St. Louis in the 90s, we read this book. But let me pause. I'm gonna go back to that. I won't forget. I'm gonna defer to Camille and then I'm gonna get back to the why anthropology and share more about some of this stuff. Go ahead, Camille.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Morris. So, oh my gosh, thank you. So I have a couple questions. So your thesis came out right at the turn of the 50th anniversary of hip hop. So we've used hip hop as like, you know, a tool in this class and in past anthropology classes. And I noticed in your dissertation, you kind of coined the term using hip hop to correct history as it relates to education, as it relates to advocacy. I want to know what role Krip-Hop plays in that and how we as students can use that in our research.
Oh, please use it. Oh my God. Yes, it plays a huge, well, one thing, you know, I have to be honest, that the 50th anniversary of hip hop, the mainstream celebration was so whack. It was so whack. It was so mainstream. I mean, it was like, are you serious? But anyway, hip hop, you know, well, I mean, even the name Crip, you know, because we took it from, you know, history, and people will say, "Oh, you're taking it from the Crips and the Bloods," and but even before that, you know, cripple was a, you know, a nasty term that was put on us by, you know, systems, you know, people that work in systems, bureaucracy, doctors, whatever. And so hip hop always flips the negative into the positive. And it's to get back to Tookie Williams, I had a chance to write him. And I asked that question. I was like, Tookie, what's the history of the term Crip? And he told me, that he's like, Leroy, we had a disabled gang member. And because he was disabled, we just give a cripple, we just call him Crip. So he's like, yeah, you're right. It did come from a person being disabled. But in the history of Crips and Bloods, and even Black scholars don't recognize that history. So Krip-Hop is again, flipping that to correct that history and to bring our radical selves into hip hop, saying hip hop, disabled people have been here since day one. If you look at the dozens, the dozens came from Black disabled slaves who were separated in dozens, separated from their quote unquote able-bodied ancestors. So they separated in dozens. KRS-One has a whole video about that. So if you take that history and say, oh snap, disability is, the bones of hip hop, because the dozens in Valley came from Black disabled slaves. That's like so amazing. It's like, oh my God. But because society is so ableist, and hip hop falls into society, and hip hop never got the disability education because hip hop is Black and the disability rights movement is white. And so it's like two different streets, in the same city in New York, and that's why I bring up the protest. Guys, again, her name, elderly lady that protest the shutdown of Willowbrook Institute in New York, in one of the islands. Anyway, it was a big warehouse of disabled people back in the 60s and 70s. And this Black mother led a protest in Harlem in the 70s, almost the same time as hip hop was going. So you had Black mothers protesting the city around closing down this this warehouse for disabled people, and you have hip hop going in the streets of New York. So these two histories are in New York at the same time, but they're on different streets, so that's the type of history that I'm trying to bring up in anthropology, hip hop, and disability studies, because disability studies is so white. So I hope I answered the question, but yeah.
I think you did. Camille, I mean, I think you're giving us an amazing tool that that we can use. I mean, that we can engage. I don't want to say use because of the appropriation that's been happening with disability justice. So I'm going to go back to some of the stuff that we talked about earlier just to outline it for the students. This is History of Theory, where we've been exploring the histories of anthropological theory the entire semester. And yeah, I just lost my chat, my notes. And you've brought up a lot that I kind of want to clarify just in case people haven't had access to this information before. So one, I mean, the history, the work that you're doing, excavating, rehistoricizing, I don't know if like there's Ira Harrison and Faye Harrison talked about vindicationist theory in their book African American Pioneers in Anthropology, for example. Du Bois, Zora Hurston. So when you were sharing about your iconic and historical trajectory, like before I could even ask you why anthropology, I could see how anthropology, in the way you're reforming it and flipping the script, is helping to illuminate and visibilize histories with, in these communities that you've cited and shared with us, and that's really important to the corrective of what we know. Michael Smith noted in the chat, hearing about the guy that took the KKK to court, Ku Klux Klan to court, sharing about the histories of these movement and arts activism organizations. That's important. I wanted to go back and ask you, I wanted to know, so you named Zora Neale Hurston, who is included in our textbook. But as I mentioned, John Gwaltney is not. So can we take a quick moment just to talk about John Gwaltney for those in the class right now? Is that?
Yeah, and please fill me in, because I don't know all his life. I'm still digging. But he was a black blind man, and his studies are so interesting because he wanted to study his people, on the streets of these cities. So he talked to a lot of people that we wouldn't even think about talking to, quote unquote prostitutes, alcoholics, just people on the streets. I'm from New York in the 70s, and people just hang out on the streets. I know we don't do that in the Bay Area no more, but that's people just hang out. And so John wanted to interview these people, bring it back to the community. And it's so interesting. And I know I'm probably going off tangent, but it's so interesting. I told my class last week, it's so interesting that in anthropology, all these white men can go to different countries and do studies and all, but our black people came and go into our own communities. That's one thing that on Hurston is that they say that it was a big issue that she was going back into her village, into her community to do her dissertation. It's like, what? Why is that such a big issue? Why anthropologists do that all the time? And so it's interesting.
And same for Catherine, or similarly for Catherine Dunham, Pearl Primus. I don't know. I'm just putting the names in the chat for students to look at later and engage. But I want to go back to Dry Longso for a minute, or John Gwaltney's work, because I don't know that I know some. Usually I talk about this in this history of theory class, but I don't know that I've talked about it in this particular class yet. so we have John Gwaltney, who is a blind anthropologist, talking about doing his doctoral research. Let me pause. So one of the first some of the responses to John Gwaltney encountered, and Zora Neale Hurston, Catherine Dunham, Pearl Primus, was this idea that their ideas and topics weren't valid, or that they couldn't go in and study their own communities. And so many responded by studying within diaspora, as you know, but also then doing that work within their own communities. I want to take it a step further with John Gwaltney in terms of there were statements that he couldn't do anthropology or ethnography because he was blind. So there was this idea, like, how can you do ethnography if you can't see? And so shifting, Dry Longso was published in 1980. There's a couple, it was reissued in the 90s. Robin D.G. Kelly wrote about it when it was reissued. And so that's when we were reading it in anthropology and African American studies in the 90s, because it was it came out, and there were new stories added in terms. For example, he was accused of making up the term Dry Longso, like that didn't exist, meaning ordinary people. And so it just shows this like erasure of knowledge and disrespecting of people's whole selves, and this disbelief that, like, someone completely disconnected from his communities or the people that he wanted to work with and study and capture their stories, the idea that he wouldn't know what the words are used in communities. So it reminds me of the work that the story you just shared with your discussions with Tukey Williams in terms of the origins of the word Krip. And so I just wanted to point people to his work. If you haven't checked out John Gwaltney's work, definitely do. For those that go on to write theses, I think it's his work is extremely powerful for multiple reasons.
And he won a couple awards for it too.
Yeah, so then he went on to not only be considered a genius and have many awards named after him, but also, like, I want to ask, has anyone that's here, has anyone been assigned Gwaltney's work in any of your anthropology courses, or has he been talked about? For example? That's wild. That's wild.
But probably not. Like I said, my professor said, "Oh no, you can't do it because it's too new." So I was like, "Wow,
And that brings me back to the poem that you wrote after Durkheim, and how it trended. It like broke the internet among people, not only people within anthropology at all stages of their career, but also people outside of anthropology. It resonated in terms of their curriculum reflecting their interest, and I mean, so much. I want to get back to that point of like having, like, okay, in 17 weeks for a semester, and I understand that, like, UCLA is on quarter, so I don't know how many weeks the quarters are. I can't remember, even though we were on the quarter system at Stanford. But like, I get there's only so many weeks. So like, when we keep seeing the same theorist over and over again, so it's not like, okay, we read Durkheim, we read Boaz, we read Malinowski, we read Pritchard. Let me think of some names that are like, I'll just stop at that. But like, even people like progenitors of eugenics and so forth. So we're reading this, but not only in one class, but multiple across the same readings across same classes. And like in once, but to have like so many different readings. I mean, so, to have that same author appear multiple times,
Yeah.
there could be inclusion, discussion. There could be space to ask participants in the learning community, like, what theories are you interested in? Like, let's talk about ecology or climate justice, but to go back to the same thing over and over. I mean, so Leroy Moore is an award-winning poet. He's, as Camille pointed out, Emmy award-winning scholar, artist and scholar. And so to have this poem to come out when it did, as we were experiencing quarantine, it resonated across disciplines. And that's one of the reasons I was so excited to invite you to this History of Theory, because that poem being accessible, that's another thing, open, like accessible for people to engage across the world, like that. It resonated with me.
It's so funny. I'll make this quick. It's so funny you talk about that poem, because one of my professors that I love dearly, she's using one of my poems for a new book, and she expressed to me a couple weeks ago. She's like, "Leroy, you should do a book of all your poetry since you've been at UCLA." And now I put together this whole manuscript, and yeah, so she's helping me to get that across in the Anthro department meeting, because in the meetings the people in publications and press are there. So anyway, so it's interesting that. You know, I lean on my poetry, especially these 2-3 years taking classes. I'm not taking classes no more. I'm through with that. But the first 2 years, I wrote so much poetry because I had to. That's the only way to get it out. So I just wrote poems after poems. Another key anthropological movie that is shared in Anthropology. I forget the name of the movie, but oh my God, I looked at that. I was like, what the? And I wrote this poem because the movie was based on these two anthropologists. Both of them were married to each other, and they went to this African tribe and studied this blind, disabled musician. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So I wrote a poem about that, and the same professor's like, Leroy, this is incredible. Can I use this for my book again? But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to be in those classes, and it's also harmful too. It's like, oh my God, you know. And these are the fathers of the fathers and mothers of the anthropology, you know, going to different tribes and such and studying and coming back and putting their name on stuff and saying that that's their study. That's another thing. My thesis, and I told my advisor, I don't know how I'm gonna get around it. I'm doing my dissertation. It needs to be co-authored with the community. I just, you know, I mean, like I said, I don't know how I'm gonna get around it, but it just has to. It just has to be. I used to go to a lot of academic conferences, and I see, you know, academics sharing their papers, and it's all about themselves. It's like, well, you study the whole community. How can that be co-authored? Oh, so anyway, that's fine.
I think I don't know how, like, I think these are, I don't know if this ever comes up with folks in terms of, I mean, these were terms that were, these are things that like, I mean, yeah, the co-authoring with community members involved, a lot of courses haven't updated the way to, I mean, speaking about the people with, that people work with during their research. One of the badges that can be earned throughout this class is about citational politics. I mean, there's also the hashtag Cite Black Women, but what the work you're demonstrating is one, citational politics, right? Like the importance of inclusion, the importance of excavating, the importance of, yeah, that, and also there's something else about that. You also, how you, so you were already, prior to going to, prior to being admitted to the PhD program at UCLA in anthropology, you'd been welcomed by the Poetry Center at SF State. I mean, you're a published author, poems, graphic novel, essays, comic. I mean, you know, so like a newspaper. I mean, you're already published and like known, not only in the Bay Area, but around the world. And I appreciate how what the professor was telling you in terms of like how you are also, you continue that tradition through your academic scholarship, right? So you're, and like Zora Neale Hurston, Catherine Dunham, Gina Ulysses, like ethnopoetry, ethnography informed poetics and other forms of creative scholarship are, you know, it's a possibility for scholars. And there's this long history within anthropology, of course, outside of anthropology as well, but this is the history of theory class. So there's a long history within anthropology. And also in this class, at the end of this term, students will be engaging creative scholarship to communicate their ideas too. So thank you for like sharing and demonstrating like the art, the beautiful art that I see behind you from the Krip-Hop movement, the poems, and also your thesis and so forth, and how you're doing your a great example of scholar activism. And
I told her to leave my first day, and even before, you know, I was on the phone in Berkeley. I told her, I was like, this, you know, this PhD is for the community. I'm gonna come back to the community. You know, the big goal is to open up the Krip-Hop Institute.
yeah.
And I always say that the Krip-Hop Institute is in the community. It's not on campus, no. It's in the community. So you know, I made that clear to everybody here. It's like, yeah, I've been a lecturer, you know, on the college circuit since the 90s, but this is for the community. So yeah.
Now I've been hogging the questions with you, so I'll stop. But I wanted to, I have one lesson before I turn the mic over to the class to ask some questions or to engage. There's some names that I think of contemporary, like people teaching and practicing right now that you work with. You mentioned Stephanie Clark, right? Who's
Stephanie Parks, yeah. They say Clark Parks.
I'll grab her work and stick a link in the chat as well. I had the honor of presenting with her, and I mean her research, her research on educational advocacy in terms of disability rights, like this was 2019 at the American Anthropological Association in Vancouver. was so just recuperative. It was helpful to me as a person that identifies with disabilities, someone who advocates for family members with disabilities, and also was very helpful for other educational researchers within and outside of anthropology.
And it's her fault that I'm here at UCLA. I always say, it's your fault that I have to say all these white dead men. It's your fault that I'm here. Oh yeah.
I want to cite. I'll put her work into, but I wanted to name her. And then you mentioned Samia Leem, who you like, linguistic anthropologist,
Hip-hop studies.
hip-hop studies. I think I put that in the chat already. You also, I noticed when I was reading your dissertation that Norma, is it Mendoza Denton?
Yes.
If I don't have a name in front of me, I won't always like say, like, so you worked with Norma Mendoza Denton. Is it like, I mean,
oh my God, she's so supportive about my poetry, about my artwork, you know. So yeah, I love her. Yeah, and she's the one that came up with the idea of doing a poetry book and had a UCLA publish it. So I'm in the process of doing that.
that is so awesome. So for those at SF State that aren't like right about to graduate, are we like Leroy, my background is like in cultural and linguistic anthropology. We both I've studied in 4 field programs. Our current program at SF State is well, we say the 5 fields. We don't have a linguistic anthropology class on the books right now. That would be put on me to teach at the moment. But there are linguistic social linguists on campus that are teaching courses through communications, as well as in the College of Ethnic Studies, that I wanted to raise awareness so that
you got DVD, right? That teaches with you?
Oh, DVD teaches the hip-hop class and Africana studies. Yeah, I was trying to bring awareness to linguistics, anthropology. Not in this course, but in the next course we talk in, they are assigned Marcelina Morgan's work.
Good, yeah.
But even sometimes people don't know that Marcelina Morgan is also a linguistic anthropologist.
Yeah.
I just wanted to amplify that, since that's something that, well, how many of you, did anyone, you can like do an emoji, has anyone had a linguistic anthropology course, like maybe offered at your community colleges and so forth? Yeah, that's
it's interesting because my first linguistic anthropology course, I'm always an activist. So I looked at the syllabus. I was like, okay, this is cool, but where's sign language? They had all kinds of language on the fucking syllabus and no sign language. And the professor's like, oh, it's up to you to bring that to the class. And that's what I did. I wrote this whole paper on Black sign language in hip hop, which is interesting because most of the hip hop sign language interpreters are white, and most of the deaf hip hop artists are Black. So it's this interesting mix. But yeah, I brought that up, and you know, after I did the paper, he's like, Leroy, this is the best thing that I never thought about this. I was like, you know, so it seems it really, you know, being an older graduate student, and since the first year, I tell it seems that I'm teaching more than I'm learning, which is kind of scary, but yeah.
That may resonate with many here, and I want to point out that it's scale, like this information scales. Like, so if they're like, each of us self-identifies with communities, and the please, I mean, yeah, that we actually, you all did rencontres on how especially the contemporary work, like the work by Jonathan Rosa and others that they've read in the class, have applied this Black radical tradition, this Kripping Black radical, and hopefully we'll now be able to include Kripping Black radical
Yes.
to freedom scholarship for multiply identified communities, like working in queer communities, work in Latinx communities, work in Indigenous communities. So like there's, yeah. And thank you for pointing. I remember talking to you when, yeah, just that's something that's come up in many classes, and it surprised me that like ASL has not been included in certain linguistic
I know. It's like, what's
even I remember teaching, I think it was images and issues in Black visual studies through Africana studies, but maybe it was anthropology of Blackness. I think the textbook, this is like 15 years ago here at SF State, I was teaching a textbook. And even though my definition of language included sign language and wasn't only focused on sound, like some of the older definitions that were in, actually, there's probably anthropology textbooks being published right now that are still excluding the, communication forms. But I remember the students were like, wait, your PowerPoint definition doesn't match what's in the textbook. And I was like, oh, thank you for pointing that out. I'm going to call the author. Like, this is really, thank you for raising visibility and sharing it. And I hope that, all right, we have like, I'm going to stop talking. I probably keep saying that. Anyone in the, let me respond. But I wanted to, yeah. Thank you. Just thank you for highlighting all these really important issues that are important for those of us that are studying anthropology, and also have implications far beyond the scope of anthropology.
And one more quick thing, I'll let it be open. Even when I did that paper, I interviewed one of the only Black sign language professor, and he said, Leroy, even Black sign language is being oppressed. There's only one college in the U.S. that's teaching it, so we got a long way to go. Yeah.
And that I need to be stopped. Like, so that brings me back to like what you were saying about the Bay. Apologies to folks from like, I mean, I'm sure well, actually, you can tell me whether this exists in LA, but there's like Black Sign Language courses being offered, but in community venues, like, is it East Oakland? I can't remember there's classes that are off that you can take in the Bay Area. I mean, they're newly emerging, but that's really important, and especially when we have a crisis of needing more ASL. Like,
especially Black ASLs. Ooh. Yeah. I mean, it's yeah.
Thank you for teaching us about this. I'm gonna put myself on mute so I can like stop the urge to continue. So SF State, any question or comments or?
Joseph, you can go ahead. Thank you, I see.
Hi, Professor. I'm Joseph Cruz. I just wanted to ask real quick. I really like hip hop, and I'm also a martial artist, and I've seen there's a lot of interconnection between the two, especially in kind of media as of late, and especially how both of them kind of embody this empowerment and self-discipline, one kind of intellectually and the other more physically. And I was wondering if you had any kind of thoughts on that.
Wow, God. I like how you connecting the two. I don't know anything about martial arts. My nephew wants to get into it. But hip hop. You go back to the history of, I know he's controversial now, but African Bambaataa, tried to, bring hip hop to stop, the street violence in New York and stuff like that. But now, you can use that and use hip hop as, a self defense. So I think it's a good mix. I think you being one of the lead voices on that and teaching others how it can mix. I did the same thing with disability. Of course, nobody at the time had any kind of information. I had to dig and do my research. But yeah, keep on doing your research. That's how schools reach out to you. That's how UCLA reached out to me. It's through my years of research and through my years of putting that on the topic.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Joseph. Nancy?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask Professor Moore what you are currently working on right now.
Right now, at this moment, I'm really psyched up. Norma didn't really got me psyched about this poetry manuscript. She just told me that a couple of days ago, and I've been getting the manuscript ready and pulling poetry here and there. And it really got me out of being so deep in this academic world. I just got done with my thesis, and that really killed me. That really killed me. And I just have to shout out to Emily in from the Bay Area. She really, she really helped me get through it because it really, really killed me. So, being done with that, of course, I'm still a TA. I think I'll be a TA until God knows when, but I'm still a TA and looking forward to my first comp exam, which is so exciting. With Justin Davenport, a Black anthropologist professor here at UCLA, and that's one that I'm cripping the Black radical tradition. So I need to get all these books to read. I've been doing a deep dive on Cedric Robertson, and one of the scholars that wrote about his life. Matter of fact, Justin is trying to get him to come here and talk, which is interesting because I've been listening to his YouTube clips constantly. Of course, listening to Robin Kelly's YouTube clips. So yeah, so now I'm just really getting deeper into the Black radical tradition and how to really crip it. And so I'll be buying a lot of books this coming month because I want the physical books for my library. Of course, I do a lot of books on audio, but these books I really want from my library, talking about the Black radical tradition. So. Yeah. But I want to say that it's really I'm putting it out there for the Bay Area, my Bay Area family, because I'm coming back to the Bay do the Krip-Hop Institute. And the Krip-Hop Institute is gonna be my dissertation. And it's gonna look at first doing a virtual Krip-Hop Institute to make it more accessible. Because you know the airline companies are not accessible. So, you know, people coming to a physical space, it's it's really not accessible. So we're gonna look at doing a virtual Krip-Hop Institute first. I'm doing that with Germany chapter of the Krip-Hop chapter in Germany because they know a lot of tech stuff, which I really don't. So they're going to take over the tech stuff, and so that's also on my plate to look at as my dissertation comes to, and also looking at organizations in the Bay Area like Poor Magazine, the new Disability Cultural Center that's going to open, having those as my field, who want to get field work, having those as my field work. And then also there's it's kind of controversial, but there's this new Black arts thing that's happening in East Oakland, the Black Arts Zone or something. It's supposed to be really coming together to make East Oakland as a Black art cultural space. It's really controversial because there's really a big time money in that space that's not Black. So it's really controversial. But I really want to be a part of that. Getting in touch with the East Side Arts Alliance, because those are my people, and the late Greg that just passed away. He had a disability toward the end of his life, and he really helped me when I was doing demo. I used to rent out the Lavinia Cultural Center a lot, and he was there at that time. So I really wanted the East Side Arts Alliance to be a part of this Krip-Hop Institute. So those are on my bucket list to do.
And I'm noting the coalition. I mean, you're demonstrating intersectionality, praxis, community grounded, and coalition building, because you're mentioning people across identities, across barriers. I can't wait to welcome you back to
Oh my God, I can't wait to do
research.
that.
We'll have to do a part 2 in person. Go ahead, Michael. And this I think might be our last question.
And also Krip-Hop has we liberated a piece of land in Tanzania. So we want to build a Tanzania school for people with disabilities. It's in a village, so it's not in the city. So in the village, disabled youth don't need to go to school because there's no school. So we want to build a school with the Krip-Hop Institute in it. So we have that in Tanzania, and we want to buy a building in Cape Town in South Africa. So, yeah.
Michael, did you want to ask your question, or we?
Yeah, real quick. It's just maybe a little off of what we're currently talking about, but I was really curious to pick Professor Moore's mind really quick. I find myself consuming a lot of introspective media, poems, all the way to cartoons such as like the Boondocks, right? So
Yeah.
and I love that kind of stuff, but I see that a lot of media that I think is publicly or widely publicly consumed and talked about relies a lot on comedy. Do you find yourself following trends or like relying on comedy or what you think people will consume more as far as your work goes? Or do you just write off of what you're feeling or what or a point that you want to get across?
I think both. I think both. When a good example that I use in class, when Lizzo and Beyonce used the R word in their songs, I use that big time. Big time, and how that applies to Krip-Hop. It's not only a moment, but it's really a time to go deeper. And unfortunately, in these mass media things, and that's why Krip-Hop is so needed. It just goes out. It just comes in and goes out one window, and that's it. Nobody learned from that Lizzo and Beyonce conflict. It just went by so quickly, and that's why we need a Krip-Hop Institute to really write about this and really say, okay, we can look at this as a policy program or an educational tool for the industry, except I think it's just an apology and just say, okay, we're sorry and go on. It's like, no, you guys didn't learn nothing. And the industry didn't learn anything. So we're missing these opportunities, these mainstream opportunities, if you don't really take a hold of them and really force these institutions and these industries to learn. We can get an apology every day, but that doesn't do nothing, So
Yo, thank you. Thank you. We have to get, so this class is over. Leroy, we have a 15-minute break before the
Okay.
next one. I'll try to get on the line, but can we, before we like log off this Zoom, can we like give, thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for your
having
time.
Thank you
me.
so much.
I hope I didn't talk too much.
Thank you.
No, you're teaching. You took us the class. We can follow you online. We'll put the ats and Paul Camille. Let's like make sure to get